Captain Marvel is the latest MCU film that stars Brie Larson. This is her playing the Carol Danvers version of Captain Marvel, and it's centered around her in 1995, where she's trying to figure out her identity. She knows herself to be a Kree, but when she lands on Earth, she starts to realize that she had a past on Earth. So she's trying to figure out who she was. She also meets a younger version of Nick Fury, and she gets to know S.H.I.E.L.D., the earlier days of S.H.I.E.L.D. This film also showcases the war between the Kree and the Skrulls, and yeah, I'm aware of the controversy of this film. I'm aware of a lot of the things that have been said on social media. I don't want to get into that, though, because at the end of the day, this is a movie review channel, and I talk about movies. Sometimes I'll make a video on an actor or an actress, but that's very rare. A lot of the times I just talk about movies. So, how is this movie? So, to be perfectly honest, I don't know a whole lot about Captain Marvel. I am aware of the male Captain Marvel, and the only reason why I know about him is because I read some comics of his, but even him as a character, I don't really know a whole lot about. I know he merged with that kid that hung out with the Hulk. That's really about it. But the only reason I really know about him was he was one of the first Marvel characters to die. There was an issue about it, and that's pretty much the only reason why I know of Captain Marvel, because his death was a serious event in the Marvel Universe. And as far as Carol Danvers goes, I don't really know a whole lot about her. I know that she was Miss Marvel, and I never really read the Miss Marvel comics. I did see her a lot in the comics that I read. I read a lot of Avengers and event comics like Secret Invasion, which we'll get into because Secret Invasion involves Skrulls. So I don't really know a whole lot about her. I know her origin, but that's only because I read the wiki page. But I do know her as a character because of past comics that I've read. And to go a little bit more specifically, I stopped reading comics in 2012 after Superior Spider-Man. That's when I started realizing that Marvel was running out of ideas when they decided to put Dr. Octopus's brain in Spider-Man. That was when I stopped reading comics overall, but after that point, that's when Carol Danvers decided to take the Captain Marvel role. That was an interesting time for Marvel, because this was like a SJW thing that was going on. Falcon was Captain America, so there was an African-American Captain America. Thor was a girl, and Captain Marvel was now overall a girl, so it was very much an SJW time for Marvel. So the movie has decided to focus on Carol Danvers because she is the most recent Captain Marvel, which I totally get. And how's the film? It's fine. It's fine. I mean, it's not the best thing out there, but I mean, it's not terrible. This is a very harmless film. I did have some issues with it, but overall, this is a very harmless film. Let me start with my positives real quick. I really liked the interactions between her and Nick Fury. It was almost like a buddy cop kind of movie where we get to see like this younger Nick Fury interact with a superhero for the first time. And I thought that was a really interesting concept in how he was introduced to this said universe. The CGI work for this younger Nick Fury is also just incredible. I didn't even know this was CGI. When I saw the trailers, I thought it was just really good makeup. I found out later that it was CGI, and just that overall is amazing. Good job, Marvel. And we get to see how he was before he lost his eye, which I really want to get into, but I'm going to save that for the end of this video because I really want to talk about that. And we see a lot of other familiar faces like Agent Coulson, which I've missed him so much. I know he's in the show, but I don't really watch the show that much. Also, just going to get this out there, Goose the cat steals the entire movie. This cat needs to have like some kind of Marvel property, like a movie or show of himself. And Brie Larson, I thought Brie Larson was fine as well. For someone who doesn't really know about Captain Marvel, I don't really have anything to say in regards to if she got the character right, because I don't really know how she's supposed to act. But for what she has been given with a character that I don't necessarily know a whole lot about, I thought it was good. Her delivery is a little bit soft sometimes when she's just kind of like saying something, where it's just very soft undertones, which I just felt as though, okay, bring more like enthusiasm to what you're saying. Her character is also very sarcastic in this film, which I didn't really have a problem with. If that was what they were going for, they succeeded. Like a lot of other Marvel characters, they start out a little bit naive, like Thor and, you know, Tony Stark. And then once the other movies come, they start to grow up and they start to grow as characters. So I think that's one of the takeaways from this film is this is how she starts, and I can't wait to see how she progresses in other Marvel films. Now, one thing that people are really worried about is if this is an overall feminist film. people were really scared if this was just going to be like an SJW film, which there is some feminist undertones, but I feel as though it's justified. It's not forced, but it's definitely there. Whenever she is exploring her past and you see flashbacks to her as a child and her trying to get into the Air Force, there's one thing in particular that's said about cockpits and jets, which is obviously a male reference. I didn't have a problem with this. Like I said, I didn't think it was forced. And from my understanding, that is her origin story. She had a pretty bad relationship with her father in the comics, at least from what I've seen on the wiki pages and stuff like that. So in terms of that, that's just like what happened in the comics. There was a lot of masculinity in her life and she had to prove herself as a woman. So that's just her origin story. So, and even that itself, I didn't think it was forced. However, one thing I do want to talk about that was forced was the middle of this film. I like the beginning and I like the end of this film, but where the film really struggles for me is that middle portion where character relationships are established and there's just dialogue that really does not work. It is incredibly forced, especially from a kid actress, and there's a lot of exposition as well, and there's some things that are revealed about the Skrulls that I just thought was forced. And for someone who knows who the Skrulls are and how dangerous they are, I was wondering if they were going to be like a major force in future films, and I was just really disappointed how they were handled in this film. There's also some writing in here that's never really explained. So Captain Marvel has this ability where she can photon blast from her hands. And I actually really like those scenes because it plays a lot of comedy. And whenever she's with Nick Fury and he's trying to open a door, she just blasts the door away. I really like scenes like that, and it's very funny. However, she never really questions why she has these powers. I saw that she has these powers in the trailer, and I just assumed that like the Kree in this movie have these powers. But she's the only one that has these powers. Not any other members on her team have these powers. So she never questions it. She never questions why she has these abilities. She just kind of goes with it, you know? And I want to also talk about the infamous grandma scene that was showcased in the trailers. Like, people were wondering like why Captain Marvel was punching this old lady. But if you've read the comics, you know that this is a Skrull. She was trying to find a Skrull that was disguised as a person. However, it's never really explained as to how she knew that lady was a Skrull. She just guessed, really. Like, she is a Skrull, like, no doubt about that, like, from the trailers and stuff. But how does she know that she was a Skrull? It's never really explained whatsoever. It's just little things like that, where you actually kind of just sit back and think about the film. It's like, that's a plot hole. I also like the 90s setting of this. It was set in 1995. I was born in 1995. And I like how there's just like little Easter eggs like Blockbuster and Game Boys and old computers and stuff like that. However, when she is trying to figure out some information of where she needs to go next, she goes to like a public library or like, I don't know, she finds a computer and she just knows how to automatically use like Earth technology, like an old computer, which, I mean, I could believe because, you know, she's a Kree. They have like all of this technology on their Kree planet. So, I mean, that's something I could buy as well. But when she's trying to hack like a public phone to reach like her Kree friends, she uses all this technology around her, like a Game Boy, and she just knows what's inside all this stuff so she can use the technology in order to contact her Kree friends. And it's just like, how, if you have amnesia, how do you know like all of this technology exists in these devices, you know? So it's just little script complications like this that really, like I said, if you just sit down and think about it, it's like, again, plot holes, that doesn't make sense. How would she know, like, all this stuff? But overall, the film is entertaining. I do like the fight scenes. I do like the effects. And it's definitely not a film for you to dissect. You know, it's not Infinity War where you get to, like, look into characters and their motivations and stuff like that. It's literally just, the whole point of this film is just to introduce Captain Marvel to an audience that doesn't know who Captain Marvel is. I remember seeing Infinity War and, you know, that post-credit scene happened, and I had to explain to my friend who Captain Marvel was. And she was like, oh, okay. So this film is literally just an origin story for Captain Marvel. And unfortunately, I do have to say that is where the film hinders, is that this is mainly an origin story. This is to showcase to people who Captain Marvel is. And I gotta say though, I am excited to see where they take this character. Now that we've gotten the origin story out of the way, and now it's most likely not going to be set in the 90s when we see her in modern time. I do want to see where they take this character, and I am interested to see the interactions between her and the Avengers. So yeah, they just had to do this film. They had to get it out of the way. Well, they didn't necessarily have to do it, but in their eyes, they felt as though they had to do it. But I'm glad that they got this out of the way, so now that they can focus on making this character, you know, likable in the sense that she isn't just presented for an origin story. Not that the story was bad. It was just okay. It was just an okay origin story. One thing I do want to talk about, I'm not going to go into spoilers like in detail about this. I do want to talk about Nick Fury. So one of the reasons why I was interested to see this film is I wanted to see how Nick Fury lost his eye. Not going to go into spoilers as to how he loses his eye. However, when he does lose his eye, I just love how chill he is about it. I was not impressed by how he lost his eye. There was a lot of comedy involved, but it's just, if I were to lose my eye, I would be livid. I would be freaking out. I would be upset. There'd be a lot of emotions that are going through my head. And the way that he just handles it is like, oh well. And it's like, you just lost your eye. Like, I was very disappointed with that. It was almost like in X-Men Apocalypse, how you find out Xavier loses his hair. It's just something that happens. Very much comparable to that on that level. It's something that happens, and it's just like, oh well, I'm moving on. And it's like, that is so lazy. You could have done so much more with that. Well, I don't mind how he loses his eye, like, at all. Like I said, I think it's funny and everything, but at least show some emotion on how you lost your eye. Don't be like, oh well, I'm chill about it. Like, you just lost your eye, you know? So yes, guys, that was my review of Captain Marvel. Comment down below what you guys thought of this film. If you've seen it yet, like this video, share it, please subscribe, click that notification button to receive notifications on when I make a video. And yeah, thank you guys so much. I appreciate the support. I am Corbett Stuckey, and this is Pixel Talk.